In 1838, the People's Charter called for a vote for every man, 21 years of age, of sound mind and not undergoing punishment for a crime. But what about women? According to the autobiography of William Lovett, in a footnote no less, the Chartist leader wrote, "I may state here that the first draft of the bill, afterwards called the People's Charter, made provision for the suffrage of women, but as several members thought its adoption in the bill might retard the suffrage of men, it was, unfortunately, left out." However, women were no mere footnote to Chartism. Between 1838 and 1852, there were just under 100 female Chartist associations in England. These societies met in their officers' homes, public houses, and coffee houses. During their meetings, they heard from guest speakers or read works like Reginald John Richardson's Rights of Women. Business with tradespeople sympathetic to their cause was encouraged. Indeed, one of the first aims of new societies was to spend our earnings with none but those who are willing to be co-workers with us in the great work of national redemption. Besides their political endeavors, these women were avid philanthropists. They collected donations for missionaries, refugees, persecuted leaders, and widows. Elizabeth Hanson was one such Chartist who, along with Mary Graspy and Susanna Fearnley, established the Elland Female Radical Association in March 1838. They agreed at their first meeting that females in all ages have been the best advocates for liberty, for we give the first impulse in forming the infant mind. Therefore, we deem it our duty, both as wives and mothers, to form a female association in order to give and receive instruction in political knowledge, and to cooperate with our husbands and sons in their greatest work of regeneration. The Elland women and many other female Chartists had been driven to the cause in part by their opposition to the Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834, which tied aid for the poorest in society to a stay in the hated workhouse. According to a report in the Chartist newspaper, the Northern Star, Hanson said that the food provided to the poor in the workhouse was calculated not to do them good, but to hasten them into eternity and prepare subjects for the dissecting knife. The dissecting knife was a reference to the 1832 Anatomy Act, which gave anatomy schools and doctors free access to corpses that were unclaimed after death, including those in the workhouses. The Poor Law also denied relief to unmarried mothers, something the women of Elland singled out in an address they made to the Queen. "It is monstrously unjust to our daughters, particularly in the bastardy clauses, for it will, of necessity, drive them to commit suicide and child murder, which it has already done to an alarming extent." The women of Elland did more than just petition the Queen. In March 1838, they ambushed Poor Law guardians as they left a workhouse and treated them with a roll in the snow. One stout portly man was so alarmed that he tried to bribe the women with a gill of ale each if they let him escape. They refused. Another woman who made frequent appearances in the columns of the Northern Star was Susanna Ing, founding member and secretary of the Female Charter Association of the City of London. Ing was a well-known lecturer at the Working Men's Hall in Mile End Road and at the Political and Scientific Institute in London. In July 1842, she appealed to the women of England to mobilize for the good of their sex and their country. She wrote of the poor treatment of women at the hands of men who treat women as an inferior creature, a slave to his pleasures and his will, and not as an equal and companion. Shall we sit still and tamely submit to a slavery against which our cheeks glow with shame and our hearts burn with indignation? No, rouse yourselves to a sense of your merits. Assist those men who will, nay, who do, place women on equality with themselves in gaining their rights, and yours will be gained also. Ing suggested that women were far too often viewed narrowly in their role. Women is still regarded as an inferior light, she argued in 1842, her province being only to make a pudding, prepare a dinner, clean the house, tend to her children. Are we, because we are women, to be excluded from the more rational enjoyments of life? According to the Morning Post, one of this movement's brightest ornaments was Mary Ann Walker, who lectured with Ing at the Working Men's Hall and shot to fame in October 1842 at a meeting whose purpose was to form a female Chartist association. The meeting was opened with an address which asserted that women ought to occupy a higher state in society. This incurred a male attendee to retort that women were more in her proper character and station at home, where she was the pride and ornament of the domestic hearth, than in the political arena. If women were to become members of Parliament, he suggested, which roused laughter in the meeting, her leadership would be jeopardized by her affections for other men in the House. If a lover in that House were to try to influence her vote through his sway over her affection, how would she act? Mary Ann Walker, astonished by this suggestion, asserted that she would treat with womanly scorn as a contemptible scoundrel the man who would dare to influence her vote by any undue and unworthy means. A flurry of public attention followed, with Punch reporting that we are disposed to believe that female Chartism and Walker may be regarded as synonymous. Her fame was such that in August 1843, attendees of Shakespeare's Hamlet were hoaxed into believing that Walker would be performing, only to discover, to their dismay, that they had been hoodwinked. Walker also attacked economic inequality, corruption, the wealth of the aristocracy, and the £100,000 of taxpayers' money spent every year on the Queen Dowager. How, Walker asked, did an old lady spend it? This raises an important point to end upon. Women political activists are often presented as being solely concerned with women's rights. The truth was that these women, and many others, challenged injustice in every aspect of society and were vocal campaigners for the rights of all citizens.